You didn't think that I was going to do a keynote by sitting behind my desk. Hey, I'm in the middle of one of my more enjoyable spiritual practices. Yep, I'm at the end of about 24 miles on a bike, going down a little quiet path. Gonna put my bike back at home. Listen, let's check out some other ways in which you can express your spirituality every day. It's not just reserved for church, although it's there. It's not just in the sacraments, although it's there. It's everywhere. Let's find out how. Check it out. One of the ways that spirituality works for me is movement through my body, whether it's hiking on a trail like this or on my bicycle, or different ways swimming in a pond or lake or swimming pool. Different engagements with moving connects me with my heart, my lungs, my legs, my muscles. Fresh air. All of this is an expression of spirituality, everyday spirituality. Why? Because we as Christians we believe that in an incarnated God. In other words, while we acknowledge that God is in the wind, blowing in the wind, God is also in the person of Jesus Christ. And we are now, as St. Teresa of Avila said, to butcher her quote, we're the hands and feet of Jesus. And so movement is for me an act of prayer. Now, I know there are people that can get up every morning at 5 a.m. and they have a devotional book and they can meditate and prayer, and they can do that 7 days a week. I have an aunt who does that. While meditation is something that I do practice, prayer is something I do practice, I've never been able to stick with an annual yearly devotional book for more than 8 days, if that. Yet, put me on a trail like this by myself on an early spring day, and it is all prayer. Sometimes out loud. A day like today, there is nobody out here. It's early spring in New England. It's about 44 degrees, and people aren't interested in this. But I'll hike this trail, and some of my most profound encounters with God have happened in nature. What about you? Does moving your body, getting out, exercising in an informal or formal way connect you with parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed? Does the rumble-thumble of your heart make you go, oh, I'm alive. This is a gift. And it is a gift. And we can so often take it for granted. So, everyday spirituality, one of the ways that works for me is moving my body. Whether that's outside or inside. How about you? Do you engage in prayerful movement? It is time to go into the Holy of Holies. Yep, the bank. So here's the thing. Please take your cash. Return card, please. I'd like my card back. Thank you. Don't need a receipt. I am engaging in spirituality. Not so much with the withdrawal, although I suppose a little bit, but more, what am I going to do with this? of all the things that Jesus talked about, he talked about this stuff more than anything else. Yep, you look it up. I'm not wrong. I've done the research. Everyday spirituality is how we use this. What are we going to do with this? Oh, look, there's a friend of mine in the car over there. She's getting some money too. This is a real coincidence. She's looking at me like there's something wrong with me because she thinks I'm talking to myself and holding up money. It's pretty, yeah. Hi, how are you doing? I know. I'm making a movie. Anyway, let's go get spiritual, do some stuff with this. Is there anything more spiritual than turning this into that? Bread, wine, the daily necessities and gifts of God. Yes! So here's the deal. They don't really want me filming in here, but I'm gonna get some of those. And some of those. Ooh. And some of these. And I'm gonna go over here. And I'm gonna get some of this. Now, this is New England, so we gotta get our wine at a liquor store. You can't do that in a grocery store like you can in California. I gotta get out of here before I get in trouble. So when COVID hit, I did what a lot of other people did. Started a garden. Now you'll notice, if you've read the book Everyday Spirituality, in there, I'm not much of a gardener. In fact, it is not my job. Well, it wasn't until last year, and I have no idea why or what changed or what shifted, but clearly God had something in mind. So that chapter on garden, it's all wrong. Well, it's all right, except for the part where I say, I don't do the gardening. Now, I do a lot of the gardening. Let's check it out. So the idea here was to make something that could yield vegetables. I wanted to be vegetable gardening. Now, it's early spring, so there's not much going on. And yes, we have cheated with that lettuce back there. That is from some already grown. But this is an amazing experience of God's work. Composting. All our trash, I won't bother to throw at you garbage as in compostable trash. And that's going to be asparagus. Man, that's going to be a bear. For some reason, this whole experience is connecting me to the earth in ways I've never experienced before. Now, some might say it's a hobby. Yeah, that's true. What about you? Do you garden? Maybe your gardening is more like this. Flowering trees and plants and so forth. It doesn't matter what it is. It's an awesome way to connect with God's creation. So, gardening, it's a gift. And the vegetables, considering the number of tomatoes we got out of that last year, send me an email. I'll have to ship them to you because we won't be able to eat them all. And the yellow crook squash, I've been squashed all fall and winter long. Anyway, gardening, getting your hands in the soil, an expression of your faith. Imagine that. One of the things that Martin Luther talks about in his description of that part of the Lord's Prayer Give us this day our daily bread. If you look in the Small Catechism, what does Luther say is daily bread? He's not just talking about bread, as in the loaf that we saw in the grocery store. He's talking about everything. Look at that list. Look up that part of the Small Catechism. It is a wonderful expression. Give us this day our daily bread is not simply about bread. It is about asparagus and squash and tomatoes and fruits and vegetables and all that we consume that give us life and that connect us with God's creation. It's a great gift, and it's an expression of your faith. So now the next time you go to the garden store, just have a little bow of gratitude to the gardener or the proprietor of that store, because he or she is making it possible for you to live your faith. Of all of the stories that people wrote to me when I wrote the book, Everyday Spirituality, by far the most common descriptions of encounters with God, with the holy, with the sacred, with that which is mysterious and beyond yet present, were stories about death. I've come here to this cemetery in Westerly, Rhode Island, where there's a number of people that I buried when I served a congregation here. One of them was months old. You know, you may think I'm a little odd, but I sometimes come to this cemetery, or others, but mostly it's this one, because I need to be re-reminded of time. I need to be re-reminded of the limitations, and I need to be re-reminded that death affects us in how we live now and is not the final word. There are other people that come to this cemetery. They come for different reasons. Some people come to just, well, it's a place to walk. Sometimes I'll see somebody drive by like that relatively young couple, and I wonder, were they here for just a nice walk? Or were they visiting the grave of somebody that they miss? Everyday spirituality is reinforced by our encounter with the finite. So I think it was Martin Luther who said that we are born again each day, which is a different take on the whole concept of being born again than we've heard about in kind of American evangelical Christianity. I'm assuming Luther's right. Every morning we wake up, we're born again. And when you think about it, each night is kind of like a little death. Well, it's been a good day, and I'm going to sleep. I don't know about you, but I enjoy sleep. Now, sometimes I don't always get the best night's sleep. I tend to sometimes wake up at like 3 in the morning, and then my mind gets going. Do you have that? You know, and you can't go back to sleep? But when I have a good night's sleep, it's so rich and so wonderful. It has to be a gift from God. That's the way I look at it. The other thing that happens at night is we dream. And dreams are, in many ways, kind of, think of them as unopened letters from God. Yep, unopened, because for the most part, many of us we have a dream, or we say we don't remember, or we don't pay any attention. I don't know about you, but I got a journal right here next to my bed, and I write down my dreams. And I talk about them with my spiritual director. And I also have a dream group that I'm a part of, and we share our dreams. It's a great way to explore and kind of work that concept that maybe this is a letter from God. You look back in the Old and the New Testament, and there are a lot of people pay a lot of attention to their dreams. When you're sleeping, you are engaged in everyday spirituality. So I'm about to go pray. Night. I wanted to give you a sense of what I mean by everyday spirituality. So that's why I recorded those videos. God is alive and well. We encounter Jesus in the everyday aspects of life, whether it's in the grocery store or whether it is as a nurse attending to a patient, whether it's in a nursing home, whether it's an accountant, an engineer, a musician. It is our experiences, our encounters with people in all aspects of life that are rich and filled with spirituality. I wrote the book Everyday Spirituality because I learned that only about 10% of the population is oriented towards traditional spiritual practices like a devotional book or daily prayer, centering prayer, meditation, those traditional aspects of spiritual expression. I also believed that I was trying to interpret our Lutheran theology that is very incarnate in the everyday aspects of life and wanted to give it some flesh, some life. As we talk about encountering Jesus, we're talking about encountering Jesus in everyday life experiences. Now, I've had some wonderful opportunities with different people in your synod to do some studies, some reflections. I've had Zoom meetings, especially, I think it was Christ in Dillsburg, Pastor Debbie. We had a great conversation about ways in which people expanded it. In many ways, they were writing volume 2. So for this keynote, I wanted to present some concrete examples and get you thinking about it. And rather than just me talking the whole time, I want to engage you a little bit. Now, I know we're going to have a question and answer discussion time a little later on, but I want you to do a little bit of work here because I'm doing all the work, all right? It's your turn. So one of the things I did was I developed this deck of cards of questions for people to reflect on. And really, they're kind of questions to stimulate the conversation. And they vary from very easy questions of everyday kind of life. For instance, what gives you great joy? I think the answer to that question is an expression of your spirituality. Here's another one. What's something in life that just doesn't make sense? That can lead to some fascinating conversation. Tell us your favorite movie of all time, your favorite book of all time, or your favorite song of all time. And then at the end it says, is there a theme? Now the questions go on and get a little bit more challenging if you wish, and more focused on language that we would talk about. For instance, here, if I could have lunch with one religious figure, it would be, and you can talk about this one. Most people have found this to be the most difficult one. Money, sex, power. Say something about God and each of these three. Here's an everyday question. Describe a time when a friend was there for you. So that's what I'd like you to do right now. If you're with somebody in the room, great. If not, perhaps you can offer an answer in the chat box, or maybe later on, or you can start texting or emailing with somebody. Let's just start with a really easy one at the very beginning. What gives you great joy? So take a moment and do that right now. Yep, right now during the middle of this keynote. It's okay. How was that? Was that pretty easy to do? What gives you great joy? What's something that you encounter, that you experience, that you embrace, that just gives you great joy? I actually have a mug. It was given to me by my grandkids, and it says, do more of what you love. And it's got a bicycle on it. And so that's my morning coffee mug. It's a reminder, not just of that activity, but that great joy is an expression of spirituality. Now, could you then go and take that experience of great joy? Could you talk with somebody else about that? Probably you could do that. That's an expression of spirituality. And one of the things that we encounter in life, particularly today, as we know from the latest results from the Gallup poll, is that fewer and fewer people are expressing their spirituality in institutional forms of religion. In other words, they don't attend church or temple or mosque or synagogue or wherever as much as they used to. A lot of people lament this, and yes, we lament this in the church. But also, let's look at this as an opportunity. A question like, what gives you great joy, is an opening opportunity. That's a very easy question. We used to call that evangelism, but we don't use that word very much anymore. What gives you great joy? You could take that question or some of these other questions and strike up conversations with family and friends who are not participating in the life of a congregation. In other words, there's an opportunity for you to encounter Jesus in ways using regular language that is accessible. So I want to leave you with this one wonderful gift that I was given. Years ago, my wife and I were lamenting the fact that our son and his family don't participate in a church anywhere. That has changed since they had children. But at the time, I was really struggling with this and wanted to ask questions like, where do you go? Or why don't you go? Or things like that. And instead, I had a conversation with Jeff Tiemann, who is the CEO of Portico Benefits. And he gave me this wonderful gift. He said that he no longer asks people, where do they go to church? Instead, he asks a different question. And he asks it of his own children, and now I ask it of a lot of people. Instead of saying, where do you go to church? I say, where are you finding grace in your life? Or what gives you great joy? And that opens up an entirely different kind of conversation, because ultimately, isn't that what we are hoping for people that we know and care about and love? We want them to encounter Jesus. We want them to have experiences of grace, and we want to hear about that. And that is a very deep and very profound conversation. So if you're thinking of somebody that you know and you're saying, I wish they went to church, don't ask that question. That will come later. Maybe it won't. But a better question is, where are you finding grace? Where are you finding joy in your life? That's a question that can actually change relationships and change lives. That's how we encounter Jesus. God bless. Amen.